When I opened my banking app and saw that all our joint savings had transformed into zeros and ones in a digital wallet, I knew the game was just beginning. But let me start from the very beginning. My name is Luke, I'm 37 years old, and I work as a manager at a large logistics company in Chicago. My wife Veronica is a marketing specialist at a financial firm. We had been married for 8 years and I thought I knew her like the back of my hand. How wrong I was. It all started 3 months ago when Veronica announced a 3-day professional development training in Denver. Nothing suspicious, she had such trips several times a year. But this time something felt off. She seemed overly excited before leaving, constantly checking her phone, and even bought new lingerie, though she usually packed the simplest things for business trips. On the first day of her business trip, I received a message with a photo from the hotel room. "Missing you, honey," she wrote. Just an ordinary picture of a hotel room, nothing special. But something made me suspicious. Perhaps it was the overly luxurious interior for a budget business hotel? Or maybe it was the fact that I could see 2 champagne glasses on the table in the background. That's when I did something I still don't know whether to regret. We have a GPS tracker in Veronica's car. I installed it 2 years ago after a series of car thefts in our neighborhood. I opened the app and, wait. According to the data, her car was not in Denver, but in Aspen, 200 miles away from where the training was supposedly taking place. My world began to crumble, but the worst was yet to come. I started analyzing her photo more carefully. I enlarged it, compared it with advertising brochures of Denver hotels that I found online. The style of furniture, wall colors, even the shape of the windows, everything pointed to the fact that the photo was taken in a 5-star hotel in Aspen. A hotel where a room costs from $500 per night. But the most horrifying discovery awaited me in the phone bills. Digging through our joint finances, I found strange payments from her card over the past 6 months. Restaurants, hotels, even a jewelry store. The amounts weren't huge, but they were regular. And all during periods when she was supposedly working late or at business meetings. That night I didn't sleep. I thought, analyzed, planned. By morning I had a ready action plan that would surprise even the most experienced private investigator. The next day I did something that might seem cruel, but at the time seemed like the only right decision. I sent a message to a number that frequently appeared in her recent phone calls. "Hi, this is Luke, Veronica's husband. She wrote that she misses me. Can you cheer her up? She's at a hotel in Aspen, room 412. I attached the same photo she had sent me to the message. The reply came in 5 minutes. "Dude, sorry? I thought she told you everything. We're here together." There it was. Confirmation. But this was only the first step of my plan. The following weeks I collected evidence. Credit statements, photos, messages. It turned out that her professional development trainings had been romantic weekends with a colleague named Michael for the past 6 months. A handsome analyst from their department, whom I had even seen several times at corporate parties. But the most complex part of the plan lay ahead. Over the course of a month, I gradually started transferring our joint savings into cryptocurrency. Not everything at once, that would raise suspicions. A few thousand per week. I used different exchanges, different wallets. Within 2 months, our $38,000 in savings had transformed into digital assets that only I had access to. Veronica noticed nothing. She was too busy with her secret dates with Michael to pay attention to financial details, which I had always handled. The culmination was her next business trip, this time supposedly to Miami for a conference. I already knew they were actually going to the Bahamas. GPS showed the exact location, and Michael's social media photos, which he forgot to hide from me, confirmed my suspicions. That's when I made my final move. I gathered all the evidence into one folder. Photos with GPS coordinates, bank statements with expenses for their romantic getaways, screenshots of correspondence that I managed to recover from cloud storage, even video recordings from cameras near our house showing Michael picking her up at odd hours. On the day of her return, I met Veronica at the threshold with 2 suitcases in my hands. Not her suitcases, mine. "Your things are already packed," I said calmly, handing her the folder with evidence and divorce papers. "The lawyer says that with this amount of evidence of marital infidelity, the divorce will proceed quickly. And as for the money?" Her face first expressed shock, then anger, then panic when she realized that all our savings had disappeared from the accounts. "Luke, where's the money?" she screamed. "In a safe place. In a very safe digital place," I replied. "Maybe Michael will help you start a new life. After all, you both love traveling together with my money." The next few hours were a mixture of screaming, pleading, and threats. Veronica tried to convince me that it was all a mistake, that she could explain everything. but the evidence spoke for itself. Especially the video recording from the Aspen Hotel, which I obtained from a private investigator I hired in the final stage. But let me tell you about the weeks leading up to this confrontation, because the devil was truly in the details. After discovering the truth about Veronica's affair, I became a different person. Not openly, I maintained the same routine, the same conversations, the same fake smiles. But inside, I was methodically building a case that would make any prosecutor proud. First, I installed a small recording device in our home office where Veronica often took important work calls. The conversations I captured were revealing. Late-night whispers about hotel reservations, discussions about their secret paradise, and most damning of all, her laughing about how clueless Luke is about everything. The cryptocurrency transfers required careful planning. I couldn't just move large amounts without triggering bank alerts or Veronica's attention. I started with smaller amounts, $2,000 here, $3,000 there. I created multiple digital wallets across different platforms: Bitcoin, Ethereum, Litecoin. Each transaction was carefully timed when Veronica was distracted or away. The most challenging part was maintaining the facade of normalcy. When she returned from her fake training in Aspen, glowing and refreshed, I had to smile and ask about her learning experience. When she showed me photos from what she claimed was a boring conference room, I had to nod appreciatively, knowing full well she was lying through her teeth. I even went as far as researching the actual professional development programs in Denver, memorizing details so I could ask specific questions. How was the session on digital marketing trends? I'd ask innocently. She'd stumble through vague answers, clearly unprepared for detailed inquiries about events she never attended. The private investigator I hired was worth every penny. His name was Thomas Rodriguez, a former police detective who specialized in marital cases. Within 2 weeks, he provided me with a comprehensive dossier that included a video footage of Veronica and Michael entering and leaving hotels together, credit card receipts from romantic restaurants during her supposed work trips, phone records showing hundreds of calls and texts between them, photos of them holding hands, kissing, and behaving like a couple in public, evidence that Michael had been booking and paying for some of their getaways. The most shocking discovery came when Thomas revealed that this wasn't just a casual affair. Veronica and Michael had been discussing their future together. They had looked at apartments, talked about her leaving me, and even discussed how to maximize what she could get in a divorce settlement. During this investigation period, I also discovered that Veronica had been lying about more than just her whereabouts. She had opened a secret credit card that I knew nothing about, using it for purchases related to her affair. Designer clothes, expensive perfumes, lingerie, all charged to a card that would legally become part of our marital debt. But perhaps the most infuriating discovery was her systematic deception about our social circle. She had been bad-mouthing me to our mutual friends, painting me as an inattentive husband who was emotionally unavailable. She was laying groundwork for public sympathy when she eventually left me. The night before her Bahamas trip, I made copies of everything. Every photo, every document, every recording. I created multiple backup files stored in different locations. I even mailed a sealed envelope containing key evidence to my lawyer with instructions to open it only if something happened to me. That's when I realized this wasn't just about catching a cheating wife. This was about systematic betrayal, calculated deception, and financial manipulation. Veronica hadn't just broken our marriage vows, she had been actively working to destroy me financially and socially. The cryptocurrency strategy became more sophisticated as I learned about digital asset protection. I discovered that properly structured cryptocurrency holdings could be nearly impossible to trace or recover in divorce proceedings. I spread the assets across multiple wallets, some in decentralized exchanges that didn't require traditional identification. I also began documenting every expense related to her affair using our joint accounts. The jewelry store purchase? A $1,200 necklace she claimed was for her sister's birthday but was actually for her anniversary with Michael. The expensive restaurant charges? Romantic dinners while she told me she was working late. The hotel expenses? Well, those spoke for themselves. The GPS tracking revealed patterns that painted a clear picture of systematic deception. Every work emergency corresponded with visits to Michael's apartment. Every girl's night out was actually a romantic evening with her lover. The tracker became my silent witness to months of lies. As I gathered more evidence, I realized that Veronica had been planning to leave me for Michael all along. She wasn't just having an affair, she was conducting an exit strategy. The secret credit card, the bad-mouthing to friends, the gradual distancing from my family, It all pointed to a calculated plan to maximize her financial gain from our divorce. But she had underestimated one crucial factor: my ability to think several moves ahead. The morning she returned from the Bahamas, still claiming it was Miami, I watched her carefully construct lies about the boring conference. She had prepared photos of Miami conference centers downloaded from the internet. She had researched session topics to discuss. She had even brought back conference swag that she'd obviously purchased online. But I knew she had been sipping cocktails on a beach with Michael while charging the drinks to our joint credit card. That's when I implemented the final phase of my plan. The divorce proceedings were swift and brutal. My lawyer, armed with overwhelming evidence, painted a picture of systematic marital fraud. The judge was particularly interested in the financial deception aspects: the secret credit card, the misuse of joint funds, and the attempted concealment of assets. Veronica's lawyer tried to argue for a traditional 50-50 split of assets, but the evidence made that impossible. The court found that her behavior constituted marital misconduct that justified an unequal distribution of assets. More importantly, assets that couldn't be located couldn't be divided. The cryptocurrency holdings remained my secret. Legally, I wasn't required to disclose assets that weren't directly traceable to our joint finances. Since I had purchased the digital assets through a complex series of transactions using my separate business accounts, they remained protected. Michael's involvement in the affair cost him more than just his reputation. When the evidence of their relationship became public during the divorce proceedings, his employer terminated him for violating company policy regarding workplace relationships. The financial firm where both he and Veronica worked took a dim view of the scandal, especially when it involved misuse of company time and resources for personal affairs. Veronica found herself not only divorced but also facing professional consequences. Her reputation in the tight-knit Chicago financial community was destroyed. Word spread quickly about the affair and the divorce circumstances. She struggled to find new employment, as background checks revealed the court findings regarding her marital misconduct. The house, which we had purchased together but was primarily financed through my business success, remained mine. The cars, the furniture, the joint investment accounts, everything was legally mine. Veronica left our marriage with only her personal belongings and the debt from her secret credit card. But the real justice came in the smaller details. The jewelry she had bought for herself using our money? Legally mine. The expensive clothes purchased for her romantic getaways? Mine as well. Even the lingerie she bought for her affair was technically marital property. I sold everything that reminded me of our marriage. The jewelry went to a pawn shop. The clothes went to charity. I donated items to organizations that help women escaping abusive relationships. An ironic but fitting end to the material remnants of her betrayal. The GPS tracker that had started this whole investigation remained in her car until the day she drove away for the last time. I watched on my phone as she drove to a cheap motel on the outskirts of town, her final destination as a single woman with no money and no prospects. 6 months after the divorce was finalized, I heard through mutual friends that Veronica had moved to another state, working as a waitress and living in a small apartment. Michael had also left town, reportedly working odd jobs and struggling to rebuild his career in a different field. Meanwhile, I remained in our beautiful house, driving my reliable car and slowly rebuilding my life. The cryptocurrency assets appreciated in value over time, providing a comfortable financial cushion for my future. But more importantly, I had regained something more valuable than money: my self-respect and peace of mind. The hardest part wasn't the deception or the financial betrayal, it was accepting that the woman I had loved and trusted had been systematically destroying our life together while pretending to be committed to our marriage. 8 years of shared memories had been tainted by the knowledge that she had been planning her escape for months. But in the end, justice was served. Not through violence or illegal means, but through careful planning, legal strategy, and the simple truth that actions have consequences. Veronica got exactly what she deserved: nothing. Today, 2 years later, I'm in a much better place. I've learned to trust again, though more carefully. I've started dating someone new, a woman who values honesty and commitment. We take things slowly, building a foundation based on mutual respect rather than assumptions. I still have the GPS tracker, though I've never used it on anyone else. It sits in my desk drawer as a reminder of how technology can reveal truth when people choose to live in deception. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I had never discovered the affair. Would Veronica have continued her double life indefinitely? Would she have eventually left me anyway, taking half of everything in the process? I'll never know, and frankly, I don't care. What matters is that I took control of my own destiny instead of being a passive victim of someone else's betrayal. The cryptocurrency investment turned out to be not just a strategy for protecting assets, but also a wise financial decision that has secured my future. The GPS tracker that started it all was eventually removed from the old car. I keep it as a reminder, not of betrayal, but of the importance of verification over blind trust. Ronald Reagan once said, "Trust but verify." I've learned that in marriage, as in business, verification isn't a sign of distrust, it's a sign of wisdom. As for Veronica and Michael, I occasionally hear updates through the social network of our former mutual friends. They never ended up together permanently. The reality of their situation, both unemployed, both dealing with the consequences of their choices, proved less romantic than their hotel getaways. They broke up within a year of my divorce from Veronica. The house feels different now, lighter somehow. I've redecorated, removing all traces of our shared life and creating a space that reflects who I am now, not who I was when I was married to someone I never really knew. The home office where I discovered her lies has been converted into a library. The bedroom where she planned her deception has new furniture, new colors, a new energy. Sometimes people ask me if I regret how I handled the situation. They wonder if I should have confronted Veronica directly, tried counseling, or given her a chance to explain. My answer is always the same. She had 8 years to be honest with me. She chose deception. I simply chose to respond to her deception with strategy rather than emotion. The most important lesson I learned is that betrayal reveals character, both in the person who betrays and in the person who is betrayed. Veronica revealed herself to be someone capable of systematic deception and financial manipulation. I discovered that I was capable of strategic thinking and patient execution of justice. Would I do it again the same way? Absolutely. The only thing I might change would be to act sooner. The signs were there long before I chose to see them. The late-night phone calls, the new interest in her appearance, the gradual emotional distance, all classic signs that I ignored because I trusted blindly. Trust, I've learned, should be earned and maintained, not assumed and taken for granted. In my new relationship, we share locations, passwords, and financial information freely. Not because we don't trust each other, but because we understand that transparency is the foundation of real intimacy. The cryptocurrency assets continue to grow in value. What started as a desperate strategy to protect my financial future has become a wise investment that will fund my retirement. Sometimes I wonder if Veronica knows about these assets, but it doesn't matter. They're legally and completely mine, a reward for careful planning and strategic thinking. The GPS tracker story has become something of a legend among my friends and colleagues. They marvel at the detective work, the patience, the strategic execution. Some call it brilliant, others call it cold. I call it necessary. When someone systematically betrays you, a systematic response is not only appropriate, it's essential for your own self-preservation. Looking back now, I realize that discovering Veronica's affair was actually a gift. It freed me from a marriage built on lies and gave me the opportunity to find real love and partnership. It taught me valuable lessons about trust, verification, and the importance of protecting yourself in relationships. The GPS coordinates that first revealed her location in Aspen instead of Denver changed the entire trajectory of my life. That simple digital breadcrumb trail led me down a path of discovery that ultimately saved my financial future and my emotional well-being. Today, I'm grateful for every difficult moment of that discovery process. The sleepless nights, the careful planning, the emotional turmoil, all of it led me to a better place. Sometimes the worst betrayals lead to the best outcomes, if you have the courage and wisdom to respond strategically rather than emotionally. The crypto wallet addresses are memorized and stored in multiple secure locations. The private keys are protected by advanced security measures. The assets themselves have multiplied in value far beyond what Veronica could have claimed in a traditional divorce settlement. Justice, as they say, is sweet, especially when it comes with compound interest. But the story doesn't end with the divorce papers being signed. Life has a way of delivering additional karma when you least expect it. About 6 months after the divorce was finalized, I received an unexpected phone call from Thomas, the private investigator who had helped me gather evidence. He had news that made my day considerably brighter. "Luke, you're going to want to hear this," Thomas said with barely contained amusement in his voice. "Remember Michael, your ex-wife's lover? Well, it turns out he's been pulling the same stunt with another married woman at his new job. The husband found out and hired me to investigate. When I showed him the evidence we gathered on Michael and Veronica, he decided to take a page from your playbook." The irony was delicious. Michael had apparently learned nothing from his experience with Veronica and me. Within 3 months of starting his new job at a smaller financial firm in Milwaukee, he had seduced another married colleague. This time, however, the betrayed husband was a successful businessman with even more resources and less patience than I had possessed. The second husband's revenge was swift and comprehensive. He not only exposed the affair to their workplace but also discovered that Michael had been embezzling small amounts from client accounts to fund his romantic escapades. What started as a marital infidelity case quickly became a criminal matter involving financial fraud. Michael was arrested, charged with embezzlement, and eventually sentenced to 3 years in federal prison. His professional licenses were revoked, his future in finance destroyed, and his pattern of seducing married women finally caught up with him in the worst possible way. Meanwhile, Veronica's life continued its downward spiral. The news of Michael's arrest reached her through their mutual connections, and she realized that her former lover had been using stolen money to fund their luxury getaways. The man she had thrown away her marriage for was not only a serial cheater but also a common thief. But Veronica's troubles were far from over. About 8 months after our divorce, I received a call from my former neighbor, Mrs. Patterson, an elderly woman who had always been fond of both Veronica and me during our marriage. "Luke, dear, I hope you don't mind me calling," she said hesitantly. "But I thought you should know that Veronica came by yesterday asking about you. She looked terrible. Thin, tired, desperate. She was asking if I knew how to contact you, said she had something important to tell you." I thanked Mrs. Patterson but made it clear that I had no interest in reconnecting with Veronica. Whatever she wanted to tell me, it was too little, too late. The time for explanations and apologies had passed long ago. However, curiosity got the better of me, and I asked Thomas to do a quick check on Veronica's current situation. What he discovered was both pathetic and satisfying. Veronica had indeed moved to a small town in Indiana, where she was working 2 minimum wage jobs just to make ends meet. She was living in a studio apartment above a laundromat, driving a 15-year-old Honda with over 200,000 miles on it. Her attempts to rebuild her career in marketing had failed spectacularly due to her tarnished reputation and the professional references who knew about the circumstances of our divorce. More interesting was the revelation that she had attempted to contact several of our mutual friends, trying to get them to intercede on her behalf. She had concocted a story about me being vindictive and controlling, claiming that I had destroyed her life out of spite rather than justice. Most of our friends, however, had seen the evidence during the divorce proceedings and weren't buying her victim narrative. The most satisfying piece of information was that Veronica had consulted with multiple lawyers about potentially challenging our divorce settlement. Every single attorney she spoke with told her the same thing. With the overwhelming evidence of her systematic deception and financial fraud, she had no grounds for appeal. The case was closed, the assets were legally mine, and there was nothing she could do to change that outcome. Thomas also discovered that Veronica had attempted to track down information about my cryptocurrency holdings. She had apparently heard rumors about digital assets and was trying to find a way to claim a portion of them. Her efforts were futile, of course, as the assets were properly protected and legally outside the scope of our divorce settlement. The final twist came almost exactly 1 year after our divorce was finalized. I was at home on a Saturday morning when I received a certified letter. The return address was from a law firm in Indiana, and my first thought was that Veronica had found some legal avenue to challenge our settlement. Instead, the letter contained something far more interesting. It was a formal notification that Veronica had declared personal bankruptcy. She was unable to pay her debts, including the balance on the secret credit card she had used during our marriage. As part of the bankruptcy proceedings, she had been required to list all potential assets and income sources. The most amusing part of the bankruptcy filing was her attempt to claim that she was entitled to a portion of my post-divorce earnings and assets. She had listed potential marital asset recovery as a possible source of future income, apparently still hoping that some lawyer would find a way to get her a piece of my cryptocurrency holdings. The bankruptcy court's response was swift and decisive. Not only did they reject her claims about post-divorce assets, but they also noted that the circumstances of our divorce suggested that she had committed financial fraud during the marriage. The court ordered her to pay additional penalties and fees, making her financial situation even worse. Reading that bankruptcy filing was one of the most satisfying moments of my entire revenge saga. Veronica had gone from being a successful marketing professional with access to a comfortable lifestyle to being a bankrupt waitress living in poverty. The contrast with my own situation, financially secure, professionally successful, and personally fulfilled, couldn't have been more stark. But perhaps the most poetic justice came in the form of a social media post I stumbled across about 18 months after our divorce. One of Veronica's former colleagues had shared an article about workplace infidelity and its consequences. The article featured anonymous case studies of professionals whose careers were destroyed by office affairs. One of the case studies, though names were changed, was clearly about Veronica and Michael. It described how a successful marketing executive had engaged in a systematic affair with a financial analyst, leading to the destruction of both their careers and the complete financial ruin of the marketing executive's marriage. The article was shared hundreds of times within Chicago's business community, serving as a cautionary tale about the professional and personal costs of infidelity. Even with anonymized details, many people in our former social circle recognized the story. Veronica's reputation was cemented as a cautionary tale rather than a successful professional. Today, 3 years after that first GPS coordinate showed me that my wife was lying about her location, I can honestly say that my life has never been better. The cryptocurrency assets have tripled in value, providing me with financial security I never dreamed possible during my marriage. My new relationship is built on honesty, transparency, and mutual respect, everything my marriage to Veronica lacked. I've learned to see the GPS tracking incident not as the discovery of a betrayal, but as the beginning of my liberation. That moment when I realized Veronica was in Aspen instead of Denver was the moment I stopped being a victim and started taking control of my own destiny. The tracking device that started it all now sits in a frame on my desk, next to a printout of the first cryptocurrency wallet balance. They serve as reminders that sometimes the most devastating betrayals can lead to the most transformative victories. As for Veronica and Michael, they've become footnotes in a story that's ultimately about resilience, strategic thinking, and the power of truth. Their betrayal gave me the motivation to build a better life, and their consequences serve as proof that actions have lasting repercussions. Sometimes people ask me if I ever feel bad about how thoroughly I destroyed their lives. My answer is always the same: I didn't destroy their lives. They destroyed their own lives with their choices. I simply refused to let them destroy mine in the process. The GPS coordinates that revealed the truth, the cryptocurrency wallets that protected my assets, the evidence that secured my future, these weren't acts of revenge. They were acts of self-preservation. And in the end, self-preservation proved to be the best revenge of all. Thank you for watching the video to the end. Maybe YouTube will no longer offer you my channel, so subscribe to it by clicking subscribe on the right under the video to receive new interesting stories. Also on the right of the video there is a playlist with other interesting stories that you can listen to, and you can also write in the comments what stories you would like to see on the channel.